All right. Hey, welcome everyone to Unpack This. I am Gloria Bailey-Ray, the authentic coach, and I am thrilled that you're here with me. Here on Unpack This, this is a podcast where we slow down, we tell the truth, and we unpack the things that we've been carrying silently. As I said, I'm your host, Gloria Bailey-Ray, known as the Authentic Coach, because I believe authenticity is not just a trait, it's a necessity. This show is for women and professionals who are tired of overextending, tired of shrinking, and tired of pretending everything is fine. Yes. Here we unpack relationships, career challenges, emotional boundaries, self worth, and those moments in life when you realize something has to change. So I want to encourage you to take a breath, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and prepare for conversations that are honest, healing, and empowering. So I always say, let's unpack this together. Last episode, we talked about survival mode. And by the way, we're in season 3. For those of you who have been following me, this is season 3 called The Becoming. And last episode, we talked about survival mode. We talked about what happens when a woman realizes I have spent so much of my life surviving that I no longer know who I am outside of struggle. Can you, any of you relate to that? Just think about that. And the realization, just that thought, it can shake you emotionally because when survival begins to fall away and you are left standing face to face with yourself. Not the version that's been built around pain. I'm not talking about the version that was built around proving, not even the version that was built around carrying everybody else. I'm talking about the real you. And that leads us into today's conversation. Oh, let me say this. Once survival stops leading your life, reinvention begins. And when I say reinvention, I'm not talking about the kind social media talks about. Not this external glow up culture, not just a new hairstyle, not just a makeover. I'm not talking about posting quotes about new beginnings. What I am talking about is internal reinvention. That's right. I'm talking about you got to go deep, internal. The kind nobody really prepares you for. Right? You guys with me? I'm talking about that reinvention, the kind that changes how you think, um, how you choose, how you rest, how you love, how you show up, and and sometimes who you become entirely. That's what I'm talking about. Let me say this clearly. Reinvention is not betrayal. Reinvention is not betrayal. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to become someone different from the version people have become comfortable with, right? When I think about my own journey, there were seasons of my life where I was functioning almost entirely from responsibility. Anybody relate to that? I was, when I talk about responsibility, I'm speaking of career, leadership, family, community, service, helping others, showing up. And while all of those things mattered, there just came a point where I had to ask myself, who is Gloria becoming now? Not who I used to be, not who people expected me to remain. And there are some out there that do. That's what they want you to do. I'm talking about not survival that, demanded I become, but plain and simple, who was I becoming? And honestly, reinvention can feel scary. No doubt about it. Because it often requires get this, public evolution. What do I mean by that? See, people knew one version of you, right? Then suddenly, for me, I started writing books, launching podcasts, speaking differently, setting boundaries, showing up more confidently. You know what? Taking up space, changing priorities. And I want to tell you, not everybody adjusts well to your growth. I know for me, a lot of people didn't. And hear me when I say this. Not everybody will adjust well to your growth. I'm saying that slowly. I want it to sink in. Because one of the biggest lies that society tells women is this: you should have everything figured out by a certain age. And if you know that, heard that, and this is especially true for women over 40, 50, even 60. And if growth, expired, there will be one thing. But they're acting like growth expires. They're acting as if purpose has an age limit. And as if reinvention only belongs to younger people. You guys feel me on that? But I'm going to tell you, some of the most powerful transformations happen later in life. That's right. And it happens because wisdom, wisdom changes you. Experience changes you. Pain changes you. Healing changes you. According to research from the American Institute of Economic Research, many adults now pursue career reinvention later in life. And this is with significant increases in people over 50. Y'all know, changing careers, downside, layoff. But over 50, what's happening is women, they are changing careers. They're launching businesses. They're pursuing passion. Notice the word passion driven work. And women in particular are increasingly, they're redefining themselves after divorce, after loss, after caregiving, after burnout, or even retirement. You ladies follow me? And why? Why is that? Because so many women spent decades becoming who everybody else needed. And eventually they started to ask, what about me? I want to tell you guys something. That one question can change your life. What about me? Right? When I think about real reinvention often begins with discomfort. Because before you become someone new, you usually start feeling disconnected from your old life. The conversations, they no longer fit. The environments that you're in, they feel heavy. The friendships feel different. The routines, they feel draining. And that, my friends, that can feel lonely, especially when you start outgrowing spaces that once felt familiar. All right? But I'm here to tell you, it's all right. Let me talk to you a moment about evolving relationships or friendships as you go through this process, this reinvention. This part, it hurts. And it hurts because not every friendship will survive your growth. See, some friendships were built around survival, trauma bonding, people pleasing, overgiving, playing small together. And listen, when one person begins evolving, the relationship shifts. You guys relate to that? Anybody relate to that? What I found is that sometimes people will celebrate your growth. Sometimes they will quietly, quotes, resent it. And sometimes your visibility reminds them of their own fear. And one of the hardest lessons women learn is this. You need to hear me when I say this. Everybody who had access to you is not meant to go where you are going. That's fact. Plain and simple. Everybody who had access to you is not meant to go where you are going. And I want you to be acutely aware of that. Pay attention. Be mindful. And that truth is painful, but at the same time, it's also freeing because reinvention requires alignment. Hear me when I say the alignment, not attachment. See, there were moments in my life where I realized I was changing. My interests were changing. My voice was changing. My confidence was changing. And you know what, honestly? I had to become comfortable with being misunderstood. I was like, okay. Because what I've come to learn is whenever a woman reinvents herself publicly, people start trying to compare the old version with the new version. I just want to tell you this. Growth is supposed to change you, right? Healing is supposed to change you. Experience is supposed to change you. And what I find in my coaching business, too many women stay trapped because they fear making other people uncomfortable. Come on, ladies, look. Just hear what I'm saying. Again, growth is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And I looked at it as it's a shedding of old things. It's a rebirth. That's what it is. Let me talk to you about rebuilding, this new rebirth. You know, when I think about rebuilding confidence after heartbreak, and when I speak of that, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a breakup, how about a betrayal or emotional disappointment? Heartbreak can damage identity, especially for women who attached worthiness to relationships. See, some women, they don't just lose a partner. What ends up happening is they lose confidence. They lose identity. They lose emotional safety. They lose belief in themselves. I tell you, rebuilding after heartbreak, it's not just about dating again. No. It's about rebuilding trust with yourself. Trusting your judgment. Come on, ladies. Trusting your intuition. Trusting your boundaries. Trusting and knowing your value. When we think about research, and there's been so much research that's out there when we think about research published in the Journal of Positive Psychology. What was found was that many individuals experience measurable personal growth after major life transitions and relationships ending, including, hear what I say, including stronger self-awareness and increase independence. But growth after heartbreak doesn't happen automatically. You have to participate in your healing. You have to decide, I will not let pain become my permanent identity. And maybe some women listening today need to hear this. You are not ruined because something ended. You are not less valuable because somebody could not love you properly. You are not too old to begin again. Hear me when I say this. You are not behind. No way, not at all. See, one thing reinvention forces women to do is to rediscover desire. And I'm not talking about just romantic desire. I'm talking about, what do you want now? Not what your children want, not what your partner wants, not what society expects, but what do you desire? See, I have come to know through coaching, friendships, professional relationships, that so many women have spent so long caregiving that they no longer know what brings them joy. In fact, some women, and you may be one of them, abandoned dreams decades ago. You may have forgot that you were creative. You may have forgotten that you were brilliant. You were talented. You forgot that you were worthy of visibility. And see, what reinvention does? Reinvention begins when you start listening to yourself again. This, ladies, is real. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to launch a business, right? How about starting to speak publicly, travel, go back to school, change careers? Some of you maybe have even thought about moving cities, dressing differently, love differently. How about just resting differently? You're allowed. You are allowed. And let me say this clearly. You do not need permission to evolve. One of the hardest parts of reinvention is letting yourself change publicly. And why do I say that? It's because people often want consistency from women, even when consistency is killing them emotionally. See, people are comfortable with the version of you that they can predict, right? But becoming requires risk. Let me be real clear and say that you may lose approval. You may lose familiarity. You may lose relationships that only worked when you stayed small. But guess what? You gained yourself. And that 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 part right there, that is worth everything. I mean everything. See, I know what it feels like to build something new publicly, to launch, um, I'll say to create, to speak, to share vulnerable truth, to step into visibility later in life. And yes, there are moments of doubt, moments where you wonder, am I doing too much? Will people understand? What if I fail publicly? All of those things may run through your head. But I'm here to tell you there comes a point when your desire to become outweighs your fear of judgment. And that, ladies, is freedom. Plain and simple. All caps, freedom. Because reinvention is not, in my opinion, it's certainly not about becoming fake. It's about becoming more authentic, becoming more aligned, more honest, more you, right? This piece is critical. I think many women are entering seasons where they no longer want performative lives. You guys feel me? They want aligned lives. They want lives that feel peaceful, lives that feel intentional, purposeful, grounded, not lives built entirely around exhaustion and expectation. Really? And reinvention often it begins quietly. And this what happens is there's just a new thought, a new boundary, a new standard, a new level of self-respect. This all is external, right? But before the external actually happens, it's what's happening inside. The internal shift begins. And make no mistake about it, I want you to hear me clearly. As you start to evolve and this internal shift starts to take place, just pay attention. There are people who do not want to see the new you. There are people who are uncomfortable with you changing up as they see it. But here's what I want to say to you. If you're in a season where things feel unfamiliar, where relationships feel different, where your old life no longer fully fits, don't panic. You're not falling apart. You are becoming. And I'll be the first to tell you, becoming is messy sometimes. Beautiful, but messy. Becoming is also lonely sometimes, but empowering, uncomfortable, But there is something powerful about a woman who finally gives herself permission to evolve. And you do that not because everybody approves, as I've shared with you, they won't, but because you, the woman, you finally understand. Staying the same is no longer an option. It's not. So today, I want you to reflect on this question. What version of yourself are you finally ready to stop apologizing for becoming? Think about that. What version of yourself are you finally ready to stop apologizing for becoming? I'd like to encourage you to sit with that, journal about it, pray about it, think about it honestly, because reinvention does not begin the day your life changes. It begins the moment you decide, I deserve to evolve too. Hey, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Unpack This. I'm Gloria Bailey-Ray, the Authentic Coach, and this season, season 3, is about becoming. And becoming requires courage. That's right, courage. So I'll see you next episode, and until then, stay true to who you are. Never, ever set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. Do you and continue to Gloria Bailey-Ray. Blessings to you.